I'd like to share some of my postdoc research on this beautiful wetland. It's known as Groenvlei. It's just outside of Sagefield, 20 minutes drive down the road in case anyone wants to go have a look. Groenvlei is a paleocoastal limnetic wetland. It's one of 8 unique limnetic wetlands in South Africa. It is fully protected under the Gokama Nature Reserve and is managed by Cape Nature. It was assessed as critically endangered by the 2018 National Biodiversity Assessment, and it has a heavily modified ecological condition. So one of the modifications to our ecosystem has been the fish. So 5,000 years BP, it was an estuarine lagoon with a diverse fish assemblage. There was a marine regression which led to it becoming a closed coastal lagoon with 2 endemic species, the Cape silverside and the estuarine round herring. And since then, from beginning in the 1930s, there were a series of fish introductions. Most recently in the 1990s was the illegal introduction of the common carp. And common carp are known to negatively impact on ecosystem functioning. So in 2000, Cape Nature noted an anecdotal evidence of a carp population increase, and there was concerns surrounding habitat degradation. What's followed has been a number of years of carp removal attempts, initially by Cape Nature and more recently by a non-profit company called Invasive Fish Species Management, run by Johnny Snyman. During that time, there's also been various projects and research being conducted in the Vlei, starting with Mandy, hi Mandy, tagging. There was some work by SIAB looking at the social side, so how people feel about carp and Groenvlei, do they want to eat it? And movements and biology of carp and Groenvlei, and Josie Pegg did a population estimate using Mandy's tagging data, and then yours truly arrived on scene, and I am stepping into this social ecological system. Oh, sorry, and I'm focused on kind of looking at ecosystem response to carp removal. So there are 4 main partners within the carp removal project out of Groenvlei. There's an ecological aim, which is to remove carp from the system. We'll never get there, but we'll talk about that later. But we want to maintain them, and I say we very loosely, but maintain them at a low enough level that we're not seeing negative ecosystem impacts. And there's a social aim, which is to utilize this invasive fish species to feed communities. So 4 main role players: Cape Nature, they do conservation management, Nelson Mandela University as conservation research, invasive fish species management, whose objective is to restore ecosystem health, and Gift of the Givers Foundation, which primarily focuses on humanitarian aid. I don't want to get too much into this table, but just to summarize those main inputs and activities, Cape Nature is really looking at governance, support, monitoring, management of the Vlei. We're doing data collection, data analysis, and hopefully in time, because we're in the slow period of data collection, management recommendations. Johnny and Invasive Fish Species Management, they're on the ground active removing fish. And Gift of the Givers is funding the whole carp removal project and are distributing the fish to vulnerable communities. So at the moment, we are in this beautiful sweet spot where we've got resources coming into the system, we've got fish being taken out of Groenvlei, those fish are being distributed to vulnerable communities, and hopefully we're going to start seeing the positive impacts of those actions on the Vlei. But what about the future? Over time, we're concerned that the partners' objectives are going to become unaligned, and what interventions are we going to need to continue to drive Groenvlei into our desired state? And so what is Groenvlei's desired state? As I mentioned earlier, there's various aims, but we're wanting to see a decrease in carp. Groenvlei is a closed system. There's no inflow, there's no outflow, but there is no way with the methods that we're currently using to remove carp, and I say we very loosely, I'm not personally removing carp, so please excuse that generalization of taking ownership. To remove those numbers to a low enough level that we're not going to see those negative impacts. Right now we're seeing a lot of vulnerable communities being fed from extracted carp, and that is going to drop over time as catch per unit effort drops, but we want to see the carp removed to minimize ecological impact. So how are we going to keep the system functioning optimally to reach this point in time. In comes causal loop diagrams. So we feel that future planning with a systems view to plan for these future scenarios are really valuable to successful long-term partnerships where there are diverse objectives. So to help us understand the system, we started with causal loop diagrams, looking at the feedback loops that exist within the system, and thankfully Jai came on board to help us really put that into a model. Just as a bit of a disclaimer, there was no stakeholder engagement, there was no questionnaires. This was Mandy and I thrashing out our ideas surrounding this system. And this is baseline. We can absolutely scale this up and bring it into stakeholder engagement, which is, it's a really valuable tool. And we can take it further as well as to quantify it and actually put numbers in and take it into a system dynamics model. But for right now and what we're looking at and how we're thinking about the system, this was absolutely sufficient. So if we look at where these main role players are inputting into the system, invasive fish species management, as I mentioned, are very active in the removal of carp. Gift of the Givers are funding the whole system and are distributing fish to the communities. Cape Nature comes in with governance and monitoring, and we're coming in with our data collection and monitoring as well. And so from here, we can play the what if game and identify some of the vulnerabilities within the system and interventions that we can put in place to move the system forward into our desired state. So worst case scenario, I'm thinking about this morning, why did we put in worst case scenario? Sorry, it's awful to think about an absolute partnership dissolution. Everybody just throws in the towel and says, sorry, I'm absolutely done, thank you very much. And we'll just see the carp proliferate, the environment deteriorate, and nothing going into vulnerable communities. Interventions there, building up an entirely new system, that's a terrifying thought. So my, I suppose, more pressing concern is a funding withdrawal. We can see that carp are being pulled out of the system. This is going to negatively impact catch per unit effort. So that means the carp that are being paid for are going to become very expensive. And at what stage are the funders going to say, we're going to go and buy our Woolworths free range chicken, thank you very much, instead of your carp? And while the positive spin on improving environmental health is taking this quite a way, there is going to come a point, I think, where funders will say, sorry, but this is just becoming too expensive of an exercise for us to keep investing in. And we need to start diversifying. The project is solely reliant on a single funder, and we need to start diversifying that pressure and putting money in the bank for the future. Friends of Gokama, Mandy in her retirement is going to start this beautiful organization and going to leverage all the retirees of Sedgefield to get involved in Groenvlei, whether that's fundraising, awareness, actually fishing. We could look at fishing competitions. I know that's been successful in other areas where it's a fishing competition focused on our invasive species that are and just have a mass removal competition. What if the removal effort is withdrawn? So again, the removal is solely on invasive fish species management and Johnny, and there could be a myriad of reasons why Johnny is unable to continue with the project. And again, Friends of Gokama come into play. Fishing competitions, but really we need to be raising up our future fishers. Johnny uses bow hunting, spearing, and gill netting, all under exemption from Cape Nature. And so we need to be training up additional expertise to carry that, I was about to say burden, I'm not sure it is a burden, but to carry us forward into the future. So these are just some of the examples that we have been chatting about and some of the ideas floating around our heads. And so somebody yesterday mentioned a so what slide, and I thought, yes, I'm going to bring in a so what slide. Well, we feel that causal loop diagrams are a really great method to visualize the relationships and feedbacks within complex social ecological systems. And we can, from these, look at behavior over time graphs and better understand potential intervention points and vulnerabilities within the system, so we can best inform our strategies to keep moving our system forward into the desired state. And then also just It's such a cool system. It's this beautiful partnership of diverse people with diverse objectives coming together, and it can be immensely beneficial. But boundaries need to be in place with clear breakpoints. If the funder can say, when we reach a catch per unit effort of this level, this is where we're going to start becoming hesitant of putting money in. We can plan for that and prepare better for that, rather than tomorrow them saying, guys, we're done. It's been a good ride. Thanks very much. And we need just contingency plans for breakpoints, and also just diversifying the pressures that are solely resting on single organizations. Thank you very much.